Alrighty, welcome back in. I'm going to be reviewing Saturday's action from the NHL. There were a total of 11 games, so let's dive in. So, because I cheer for the Habs, they're always the first team on the list. Doesn't necessarily mean they played the early game. There was an actual earlier game, and I'll dive into that in just a second. So, the playing Penguins, I apologize, were playing host to the Montreal Canadiens. There's no scoring. So there was scoring in the first. Sidney Crosby. This dude has been a thorn on Montreal's side since he joined the league. I still remember that infamous shootout goal he scored against the Habs in his first game against a team he cheered for growing up. And yeah, he's had our number since day one. So no surprise he scored against them again, getting his fourth goal of the season from Raquel. 15:57 of the first period. Once again, he would score again, getting his second goal of the game, a power play marker from Letang and Carlson, with a minute and 20 seconds remaining on the clock. So the Penguins had a 2-0 lead heading into the third period. Christian Dvorak would finally get the Montreal Canadiens on the board, getting his first goal of the year, assisted by Heineman and Slavkovsky, 5:32 of that period. Montreal would pull the goalie and Blake Lizotte, who signed with the Penguins in the offseason, previously played with the Los Angeles Kings, would get the empty net goal, assisted by Lars Eller with 45 seconds to go. The Penguins would win 3-1, and the Habs are now on a ridiculously long losing streak. I think it's now 3 or 4 games. Yikes. It's going to be another tough year. Alrighty, so let's go back. So I forgot to mention yesterday when the Panthers and Stars played, they're actually doing their global series in Finland. So back-to-back games. This is the reason why they're doing their home and home. But realistically, neither team is home. So the Panthers would get on the goal scorer sheet first in the first period from Evan Rodriguez, getting his third goal of the year, assisted by McCullough and Reinhart, 14:45 of the first period. Matthew Tkachuk would get on the goal scorer sheet himself, getting a power play goal, assisted by Belinsky's, I believe, and Barkov, 8:47 of the second frame, putting the Panthers on top 2-0. Evgeny Dadonov would get the Stars on the goal, getting a second of the season, a power play marker from Wyatt Johnson and Matt Duchene, 11:22 of the second period. Speaking of Matt Duchene, he would score 34 seconds after that, getting his seventh goal of the year from Heiskanen and Harley. So heading into the third period, we were tied up at 2. AJ Greer would get the go-ahead goal in the third. I believe his first as a Panther from Nosek, 2:32 of the third. And then Sam Reinhart will get the empty net goal with exactly a minute to go on the clock. For him, that'd be his 10th goal of the season. So the Panthers would win the second game of their back-to-back in Finland. Alrighty. The next game, back in North America, took place in Philadelphia as the Flyers played host to the Boston Bruins. Matthew Portis would get his first goal of the year from Lindholm and Geeky, 13:28 of the first period. So heading into the second, the Bruins had a 1-0 lead. Justin Brazeau would get the only goal in the second period. For Brazeau, that'd be his third goal of the year from Marchand and Lindholm, 11:23 of the second period. The Flyers pulled their goalie with a lot of time left on the clock. With 3:39 to go, Brad Marchand will get the empty net goal, his third of the year from Pastrnak. So the Bruins would shut out the Flyers 3-0. And Korpisalo, the new acquisition from Ottawa in the offseason, would get the 20-save shutout. The Los Angeles Kings played host to the Chicago Blackhawks. In the first period, Alex Lafleur would get his seventh goal of the year, a power play goal from Kopitar and Kevin Fiala, 3:57 of the first period. In the second period, just the lone goal. Again, Lafleur would strike, getting his second goal of the game, 8th of the season from Turcotte and Danault. With a minute 23 seconds to go, the Kings had a 2-0 lead heading into the third period. The captain, Nick Foligno, would cut into that lead, getting his fourth of the year from Allen just over 3 minutes into the third. Craig Smith would tie the game up just over 5 minutes into the period. For Smith, that'd be his fourth goal of the year from Reichel and Vlasic. So we were tied up at 2 at that point. 11:48 of that period, Philip Deneau would break the tie, getting his first goal of the year from Fiala and Trevor Moore. 11:48, I just said that, of the third. And Tyler Bertuzzi would tie the game up with 31 seconds to go. For Bertuzzi, that'd be his 4th goal of the year from Donato and Seth Jones. We would need overtime or a shootout to settle this one, and Ryan Donato would get the shootout winner for the Blackhawks. The Washington Capitals were playing pretty well, I'm not going to lie, playing host to the Columbus Blue Jackets. So in the first period, Protas would put the Capitals on the board, getting his 4th of the year from Strome and Ovechkin, just 56 seconds of the first period. Less than a minute after that, Connor McMichael would make it 2-0, getting his 6th of the year from Sandin. Mangiapane would get his 3rd goal of the season from Verana and Lapierre, 7:28 of the first period. Ovechkin would score, getting his 6th of the year from Strome and Protas, 14:34 of the period, making it 4-0. They weren't done there. Just literally 24 seconds after that, Nick Dow would score, getting his 4th of the year from Jeff Van Riemsdyk and Duhaime. The Capitals got 5 goals in the first period. They were dominating, to say the least. In the second period, Damon Severson would finally get the Blue Jackets on the board, getting his 3rd goal of the year from Fantilli, 49 seconds into the middle frame. Connor McMichael would get his 2nd goal of the game, his 7th of the season from Wilson and Dubois, 4:51, making it 6-1 in favor of Washington. Kevin Labanc would get his 1st goal of the season for the Blue Jackets from Aston Reese and Sean Monahan, 14:36 of that frame. So heading into the 3rd and final period, the Capitals had a 6-2 lead. Just the 1 goal to report. Dylan Strome would get his 4th goal of the year from Ovechkin and Radish with 1 minute and 26 seconds to go on the clock. The Capitals would win big, 7-2. Now we're off to Canada's nation's capital, where we had the Ottawa Senators playing host to the Seattle Kraken. In the first period, Adam Gaudette would open up the scoring, getting his 6th goal of the year from Cousins and McEwen, 5:28 of the first frame. Brady Tkachuk would make it 2-0, getting his 7th of the year from Bernard Docker and Stützle, 11:11 of the second frame. So the Sens had a 2-0 lead after 2 periods. Seattle would pull their goalie with over 2 minutes to go. Tim Stützle would strike, getting his 6th of the season from Amadio, and that goal happened with 2 minutes and 14 seconds to go on the clock. So the Ottawa Senators would get the shutout. Anton Forsberg would make 22 saves in the win. Now we're off to Detroit. We had the Red Wings playing host to the Buffalo Sabres. In the first period, Alex Tuch would get his 4th goal of the season, a shorthanded marker, unassisted, 11:39 of the first. So the Sabres had a 1-0 lead heading into the second period. The captain, Dylan Larkin, would tie the game up, getting his 6th goal of the year, a power play goal from Patrick Kane, 7:49 of the second. And he got his 2nd power play goal of the game from DeBrincat and Raymond, his 7th of the season, 14:38 of that period. So the Red Wings had a 2-0 lead after 2. There was no scoring in the 3rd, so that was where we would stay at the end of the game. So the captain getting 2 goals on the night. St. Louis Blues played host to the Toronto Maple Leafs. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure the Blues beat the Leafs in Toronto. So this would have been their 2nd game, and unfortunately their last game, because anytime a West and East team play in the season, they only play each other twice, once on both home arenas. So Mitch Marner would open up the scoring in the first, getting his 2nd goal of the year from Timmins, 5:25 at the first period. The Maple Leafs had a 1-0 lead heading into the second. Colton Parayko would get his 2nd goal of the season from Walker and Sutter, 3:29 of the period. We were tied up at 1. Jordan Kyrou would break the tie, getting his 3rd goal of the year unassisted just over 8 minutes into that period. So the Blues had a 2-1 lead. Colton Parayko, who I have on my fantasy league, finally is starting to score. Would get his 2nd goal of the game, his 3rd of the year from Sutter and Holloway, 12:33 of the second period. So the Blues got 3 goals in the second period. They would take a 3-1 lead heading into the 3rd. Steven Lorentz would cut the deficit to 3-2, getting his 2nd goal of the year from Kampf and McCabe, 13:52 of the 3rd. And then the Maple Leafs would pull their goalie, but unfortunately it did not work out. Pavel Vujnovic would get his 4th goal of the year, making it 4-2 with an empty netter assisted by Parayko. So Parayko had 2 goals and an assist Yes, that's good. Right. As the Blues would win 4-2. The Nashville Predators were finally starting to find their legs, I'm not going to lie, after a very slow start, played host to the injury-plagued Colorado Avalanche. And I did my homework on there on the Avs. And I remember I was raving about how impressive Ross Colton was playing for the Avs after signing with them 2 seasons ago. Then I realized he's out 6 to 8 weeks with an injury. Lekkonen's out. Obviously, Landeskog's still not playing. They got a lot of injuries, so they guarantee they have a lot of guys who are probably used to like a top 9 role. They're probably playing top 6 minutes, so it's going to be a little tough for the Avs. But once they get these players back, I guarantee they'll get to form. So there's no scoring in the first. Cale Makar would open up the scoring in the second, getting his 5th goal of the year. A power play marker from Middlestad and McKinnon, 2:54 of the second frame. McKinnon are off to like hot starts. They've had a point in all 12 or 13 of their games so far. Steven Stamkos would tie it up, getting his 2nd of the year from a power play goal from Ryan O'Reilly, 8:31 of the first frame. Colton Sissons would break the tie with 1:20 to go, getting his 1st of the year from Del Gaizo and LaRue, if I said that name correctly. Nashville took a 2-1 lead heading into the second period. No scoring, so they had a 2-1 lead heading into the third period. Roman Josi would get his 1st goal of the season, the captain, power play marker from Stamkos and Marsh, so 5:15 of the third, giving the Predators a 3-1 lead. Nathan McKinnon, who I just previously talked about, would get his 6th goal of the year, cutting the deficit to 3-2. From Taves and Makar, 17:43 of the third. Philip Forsberg would make it 4-2, an empty net goal, getting his 6th of the year from Nyquist, and that goal happened with 1:14 remaining. The Avs still pulled their goalie, and then Gustav Nyquist would get the empty net goal, getting his 4th goal of the year, unassisted with 41 seconds to go. So despite the fact that it was a 5-2 game, it was a lot closer. Realistically, only 5 goals were scored, not counting the 2 empty net goals. So Nashville would win. The Avs, unfortunately, would suffer the loss. The Vegas Golden Knights and the Utah Hockey Club, 2 of the 3 newest clubs in the NHL. Obviously, Seattle's right there in the middle. Now, granted, Vegas and Seattle were both new teams. Utah obviously used to play in Arizona, but they're a new team in the league. So hopefully get what I'm saying. So Logan Cooley would get his 2nd goal of the year from Bustad and McBain, 11:52 of the first period, making it 1-0 in favor of the Utah Hockey Club. And as a side note, I can't wait until I get a full name or an actual name next season. I'm so tired of the hockey clubs and the football clubs. Like, be creative, come up with something. So the Utah Hockey Club took a 1-0 lead heading into the second period. Ian Cole would get his first as a member of the Utah Hockey Club. See, it just takes so long to say. Assisted by Cooley and Makar, and that goal happened with exactly 8 minutes to go on the clock. Pavel Dorofeyev would finally get the Vegas Golden Knights on the board with just under 5 minutes to go. Dorofeyev would get his 7th of the year from Hurdle and Howden. Now, this is crazy. It looked like it was going to be 2-1 heading into the second period, and then Noah Hanifin scored with just over a second to go, getting his 1st goal of the year from Nick Watt and Kolser. So we were tied up at 2 heading into the third. William Karlsson would get his 2nd goal of the year from Hanifin, 5:37 of the third, putting the Vegas Golden Knights up 3-2 at that point. And with just under 7 minutes to go, Alex Kerfoot would get his 2nd goal of the year from Bustad and Lamoureux, I believe, to tie the game up at 3. We would need overtime to settle this one, and Brett Howden will get the game-winning goal, his 6th of the year from Hanifin and Mark Stone, 2:15 of the overtime frame. So the Vegas Golden Knights would win this in overtime. And then the last game from Saturday took place in San Jose, where the Sharks played host to the Vancouver Canucks. There was no scoring in the first, but to jump ahead to the second, where Nico Sturm would make it 1-0, getting his 2nd goal of the year from Kunin, 2:37 of the second frame. Tyus Sutter would get his 3rd goal of the year from Hoglander, 14:41 of the second frame, tying the game up at 1, heading into the third. That's where the score was. It would take a long time in the third, but Jake DeBrusk would score with 4 minutes and 22 seconds to go, getting his 1st goal as a Canuck from Quinn Hughes and Hronek. Michael Granlund would tie the game up with 1:17 to go. For Granlund, that'd be a 6th goal of the year from Toffoli and Ekblad. And just when we thought this game might head to overtime, Tyus Sutter would score a late goal with just 26 seconds to go, his 2nd of the game, Obviously, the game winner, his fourth of the year from Garland and Soucy. So a very wild finish considering it took so long. It took until over 5 minutes to go in the third for some actual action to happen. So, yeah, the Canucks would win this by a final score of 3-2. And as always, after every time I look at the scores, I check the standings to see how up to date we are. So the Florida Panthers, no surprise there, are still in first place in the Atlantic Division with a record of 9-3-1. They have 19 points. Tampa Bay is in second place with a record of 7-4-0. They have 14 points. Toronto is in third place. They have 6 wins, 5 losses, and 1 overtime loss, 13 points. In the Metropolitan, Washington is now in first place. Who would have guessed this? With a record of 8-2-0, 16 points. A very, very strong start to the season. Hopefully they can keep it up. New Jersey's tied with them in points, but they've had one less win. 7-5-2 is their record. And the New York Rangers are 7-2-1. They have 15 points. So only 1 point is separating 3 teams. It's crazy. And realistically, Carolina is just 1 point behind the Rangers. They have a record of 7-2-0 for 14 points. And the Ottawa Senators, who are off to a decent start, 6-5-0, they have 12 points. And then rounding out the rest of the Eastern Conference, really from the Blue Jackets to the Flyers, only separated by 2 points. So if Philly wins, they could jump up to like 7th place. It's crazy. Columbus is 5-5-1. They have 11 points. The Detroit Red Wings have the exact same record. Boston is 5-6-1. They have 11 points. The Pittsburgh Penguins, after the win, are finally out of the basement of the Eastern Conference. 5-7-1. They have 11 points. The Islanders are 4-5-2. They have 10 points. Buffalo and Montreal are both 4-7-1. And the Flyers have the same record. So a lot of close games, a lot of close in the standings, to say the least. That's what I was trying to get at. Sorry. Okay, now we'll take a look at the Western Conference. Winnipeg, no surprise there, are still on top of their Central Division with a record of 10-1-0. They have 20 points. Minnesota is 7-1-2. They have 16 points. And Dallas is 7-4-0. They have 14 points. The Vegas Golden Knights are still in first in the Pacific with a record of 8-3-1. They have 17 points. The Los Angeles Kings are 6-3-3. They have 15 points. And Vancouver is 5-2-3. They're in the top 3 of that Pacific Division. But the Flames are right on their tail. Their record is 6-4-1. They have 13 points. Utah is 5-4-3. They have 13 points. And then rounding out the rest of the Western Conference, it's close at the top, and then you can start to see at the bottom their teams are a little further away in the standings. So St. Louis is 6-6-0. They have 12 points. Edmonton is 5-5-1. They have 11 points. Seattle is 5-6-1. They also have 11 points. Anaheim is 4-4-2. They have 10 points. The Avalanche are 5-7-0. They have 10 points. Nashville is 4-6-1. They have 9 points. Chicago is 4-7-1. They also have 9 points. And at the basement are the San Jose Sharks with a record of 3-8-2. They have 8 points. So there's a 5-point differential between San Jose and Utah. So the West isn't as close as the East. And this is kind of where I expected like San Jose and Chicago to be at the basement of the Western Conference. Nashville, I'm a little surprised about, but that's just because they got off to a poor start. The Avs are injury plagued, so it makes sense that they're down there. And then the only other team I'm surprised about is just the Oilers, but they're only separated by 2 points from the Utah Hockey Club. So if the Oilers happen to win on Sunday, they could jump up into a wild card spot. I'm not too worried about their slow start. Alrighty, that takes care of this video. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, and as always, take care.